The difference with these, the UK version doesn't have the hit singles. See, the US, it's Hits of USA over here. So they make sure to put the hit singles on there. So with the US version, you get Let's Spend the Night Together and Ruby Tuesday. And then there's a couple songs left off from the UK version that aren't on the US version. But on all the versions, you should get Connection, which is a good one. I like My Obsession, even though I don't think too many people think that much of it. I think it's a good song. Complicated is a good one. What else? Who's Been Sleeping Here is good. Trying to think of the other songs. Yesterday's Papers is very good, and I like the Album Closer, which is experimental in a way. Something Happened to Me Yesterday. It's a very good song. So there's that. All right, next up is another album from 1967. Their Satanic Majesties Request. This one received some mixed reviews when it came out back in the day. Some people were accusing them of copying the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper. I mean, it's a very psychedelic cover. If you have the vinyl copy, it's a lot of fun because if you're lucky, it's in 3D, which is kind of cool. I've seen a couple copies there, but they're so expensive. Yeah, this is a grower. When I first heard this, I really wasn't too crazy about it, but after a couple listens through the years, I've come to like this album. It's a good album. Yeah, some of the songs here are weak, but for the most part, they're all pretty strong, I think. Going through the tracking list here. Sing This All Together is okay. Citadel was a great song. I love the guitar riff on there. In Another Land, I think is the only Rolling Stone song with Bill Wyman's name to it. Not only does he write it, but he sings it. And he snores on it too. True story. 2000 Man's good. And I should mention that Kiss, yes, Kiss, did a cover of it on their album Dynasty in 1979, and it's a wonderful cover. They really made the song their own. Although most people associate the song with Ace Frehley, but still, good cover nevertheless. She's a Rainbow, that was a big hit that's the big hit from this album. I like 2000 Light Years from Home. The Lantern's okay. It's not a bad album. And, yeah, I got the SACD version here, which is all very shiny. And all right, next up, I got on vinyl here in CD. I have another CD copy of this. I forgot. Well, I'll show the vinyl first. Beggars Banquet, released in 1968. This was their first album produced by Jimmy Miller, who would go on to produce their next 4 studio albums. I love Beggars Banquet. It really is a great album. They really matured at this point. They were going from being sort of an R&B and blues band to British pop to people accusing them of copying off the Beatles. And then by this time, I think they really just made a name for themselves with this wonderful, wonderful album. And now this is the censored cover, because back then nobody was a big fan of this cover here, the toilet. So this is what happened. I think if you have a copy from back in the day with the toilet, you got a collector's item on your hand. You got Sympathy for the Devil, No Expectations is great, Dear Doctor is funny, Parachute Woman's great, Jigsaw Puzzle, so underrated. Street Fighting Man, one of their hits. Prodigal Son is underrated. I like Stray Cat Blues. Factory Girl's good, and it all ends with Salt of the Earth. Wonderful album. The next album I want to talk about is an album I've already mentioned before, and I can safely say that of all the albums that the Stones have released, this one is my favorite, because it was my first one, and I'm talking about Let It Bleed. Yeah, I gotta put emphasis on the bleed because some people think I'm talking about Let It Be by the Beatles, which, funny enough, the Beatles were working on Let It Be around the same time. I adore this album. Not only is it my favorite Stones album, but it's my second favorite album of all time. My favorite album of all time being Abbey Road by the Beatles. So yeah, I really, really like this album. From beginning to end, it is a wonderful album. I love it to pieces. The other version of the album I've got, when I bought this, the older Abco CDs were still out, so I got this a couple years ago, and it sounds wonderful, remarkable. Now, as for songs, okay, they're not in order here. Gimme Shelter, instant classic. Love in Vain is good. Country Honk, hurts me to say that it's the weakest song on the album, but it's basically a country version of Honky Tonk Women. Live With Me is awesome. I love the title track. Midnight Rambler is even better live. You got The Silver, has Keith Richards taking the mic stand. I think it was his first time doing that by himself, because I know he had a vocal part on, what was it? Something Happened to Me Yesterday from Between the Buttons. So, yeah, this was the first time where he got to take lead vocals and take the mic away from Mick. I adore Monkey Man. Great song. Love the piano intro from Nicky Hopkins. I think that's who's playing it. And then it ends with You Can't Always Get What You Want. Great album. Highly recommended. There's that. Alright, now their next studio album, the very famous cover, Sticky Fingers, 1971. And yes, mine has the zipper. Here's the CD. The CD versions I have of the ones from Sticky Fingers till whenever are the 1994 remasters. The 2009 ones from Universal, from what I've heard, they're really distorted or they're too loud. So, great album from beginning to end. One of my top 10 favorite albums. Brown Sugar, instant classic. Sway, underrated. Wild Horses is great. Can You Hear Me Knocking is wonderful, especially the jazz breakdown with, what's his name, the late great Bobby Keys on saxophone. You Gotta Move is good. Bitch is wonderful. I Got the Blues, and it's good. It's good. Probably one of the weaker songs on the album, but it's still good. Sister Morphine might be my favorite off the album. Dead Flowers is wonderful, and it does have a sense of humor. Some people don't realize that the Stones have a sense of humor, especially Mick. He's hilarious. He can be very funny. And then it ends with Moonlight Mile. So just another great album from the Stones. And it's wonderful to have on vinyl because you get the Andy Warhol album artwork. They followed that up in 1972. And while recording their next album, they were trying to, from what I know, avoid paying their taxes. So they went to Paris, hung out in Keith's rented French villa, or I don't know. They were in Keith's house in France, and they set up a recording studio there, and they made what some consider to be their best album. For me, I think it's their second best. So it's in my top 10, and not too far off from what I believe. I would say it's my 8th favorite album of all time. And that album is Exile on Main Street. Wonderful album. It is a bit of a grower. It does take some time to get into. Some people just can't get into it because at the time it was a double album, which can now comfortably fit onto one CD. Now I do have the 2010 reissue, which has a couple of new songs on it, but after listening to this version and the 2010 version, the 2010 version is just too loud. This is far better. So let's stick with the 1994 ones. Now, in terms of favorite songs on here, there's a lot here, like 18 songs in total. It's just a wonderful album. Rocks Off, I love. Rip This Joint, Casino Boogie, Tumbling Dice, which is the only song from this album you're going to hear on the radio. sadly. Sweet Virginia. Sweet Black Angel has a good backstory. It's about Angela Davis. You can go look her up on Google, kids. Loving Cup was great. Happy, song from Keith. So Let It Loose is great. All Down the Line. Shine a Light, which might be, it is my favorite song of the album because I like that it could be a tribute to Brian, or that Mick wrote it for Marianne Faithfull when she tried to kill herself. Or it could be a mix of the two. But whatever it is, I love Shine a Light. And yeah, it ends with Soul Survivor. Wonderful album. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful album. If you don't like it, then that's okay too. I mean, some people just can't get into this one, but I love it. And this was hard to find on vinyl. Next up, 1973. Their last album with Jimmy Miller, and not too many people were happy with it when it came out. And to this day, the consensus seems to be the same. This is when the Stones were sort of, they just hit a bum note here or whatnot. That album is Goat's Head Soup, which I'm showing the CD first. I have it on vinyl. Hold on here. Here we go. See how much, see the difference between the CD and the vinyl. All right. And what do I think of this one? I really like it, actually. I really like it. I think of the Jimmy Miller produced albums, it is the weakest. But there's something about this album that I really like. It's very mellow, while still being a rock and roll album. Dancing with Mr. D is great. 100 Years Ago is well written. Coming Down Again is good. Heartbreaker. Angie, which was a big hit for them, #1 here in the U.S. Silver Train's okay. Hide Your Love, yeah, they're sort of filler. Winter is amazing. Love that song. Love it. Can You Hear the Music's okay. And then it ends with Star Star, which I just love.